basically try to standardize everything so that we can then expand across the district. So we are now basically at the expand across the district phase. So now basically any school that is interested is allowed to create an esports club or team. So this training is specific to creating a club, which, I think this is a good start off. You can start off with a club and then build it into a team. Maybe you have an offshoot of your club that becomes, your competition side of things. So but I think the club is also going to be very popular at your schools. We've seen tremendous interest in esports at the pilot schools. So I definitely know that you won't be without students being interested. That's for sure. So so with that, we were able to partner with Dell through some of our purchases that were able to give us some PD days through ALP, which is where John is from. And so John is going to just lead us through the agenda today and talk about how to start a club. Just know, I'll be here to answer some questions, but we will also have like an official district training in August or beginning of September where I will review basically district level stuff of how to get started in the district and what you'll need to do for IT and all that fun stuff once we have that meeting. So this is really just like pretend all that's already happened and now you're creating clubs, you're trying to think about the actual club and meeting creation. You've already got through all the other district level stuff. There will also be a permission slip that will be required for all students who are part of the club. And it is still not officially finished for this year yet. I'm just waiting on the COVID statement to see if we have to include it. Sorry about that. And so once I have that, I will also, because I had you guys sign up through a Google Doc, I will add you guys to a mailing list. And so as soon as I get that, I will send it out to you guys as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to John McCarthy from ALP. I will still be here for questions at the district level, but he's going to lead you through the training.
Thanks, John. And John, I made you co-host so that if I miss people popping in, you can add them in. So yeah, welcome everybody. Excited to work with you. Again, I'm John McCarthy with Advanced Learning Partnerships, and this is a partnership with Dell Technologies and Advanced Learning Partnerships with this district. As we get started, I just want to do a quick check. How many of you attended the Coaches Institute? If you did, you can post in the chat. I just want, because it'll impact how we approach the beginning.
Also, if you're new to Zoom, I know most of you shouldn't be, but there's the chat down at the bottom. You click that, it'll open up over there on the right. And so you can, or you can use the reactions as well, thumbs up, thumbs down, that fun stuff.
Okay, so it looks like, no worries. I'm just checking this because then, if everyone had been on that, then I would, there's some overlap, but it doesn't sound like we're all new to this particular meeting, so perfect. So we'll continue as is, and this will be good. So I'm just showing you right now the agenda on the screen, and just so you know, you have my email address and Twitter. If you want any questions after today for me, just please feel free to email me or direct message me in Twitter, and I'll be happy to answer those questions. Because after today, you'll get started, and as you're working on it, you might be like, oh wait, now I got a question, and I want to make sure you have access. Of course, you have access to John as well, so it's all good. In the agenda, you'll see we had a couple suggested pre-readings to do. If you didn't do that, that's okay. Just recommend that you might explore these readings, because if it helps put everyone on the same page of shared understanding about esports, because I think we have people with a wide range of experience and understanding of esports. So this way we can share some common viewpoints around that. And then what you see down here in the second box here is these are resources we're going to be using throughout the day, because this is not just going to be me talking at you. Hopefully we're going to be having some conversations as we unpack some ideas and thoughts that relate to your district. And there's going to be work time where you're actually going to start working on your club. and putting it together. Now, if you're someone here is like, well, wait a second, John, I'm just here to get the information to give to someone else. If that's the case, it's still, you can really help them, those people, by creating some of the components today. So you can hand that off to them, and then they have something to work with. So that's what we're going to be doing. So for example, you'll see this first link. You're going to want to click and download this PDF, which I'll show later on the screen, because this is the complete guide for planning and putting together a club with all the templates and components. And then beneath that is a link here. This takes you to a folder of editable templates that we're going to, that are based upon this particular guide. So you can actually either use what has already been created, you can revise it, or just be inspired by it and create something different. All of this is Creative Commons license, which means that you have the right, the author rights, to make changes and adaptations to it as you need. So that will be a good piece. I realized I should have linked in. This is an example of a crosswalk for mission and vision. We have one specifically for your district, and I just realized, John, with your permission, I'll copy and paste that crosswalk into a docket and relink it in here so they have access to that particular piece.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll take care of that. I'll take care of that in an upcoming break so that you'll have that. And then this is a link. I'll remind you again later on, but you're going to want to click this and make it, and it's going to automatically have you make a copy. This is a planning document. So, like I said, you're going to put together your all of the components for your esports club. And this is a document where I strongly recommend that you put those pieces in so it's all in one file. So you have it to refer to, you have it to to make adaptations and changes as you go along. In fact, let me just bring it up on the screen so that we can see this. There we go. Hold on. Okay. So what it's going to provide you is going to be this planning document. Now, what you see here are just the different components that we're going to be exploring today. And what happens is this has been chunked into sections. So the first section, as long as you made a copy of this document, the rest of this work, I'm going to be going over it with you, because this is the checklist that breaks out basically the 11 steps needed to have your club put together. And each of these are embedded links that will take you to that section to actually create the content. So again, once we get you the crosswalk for your district that already exists, you just copy and paste that right in here. And then you'll have that information so that you can make your club purpose. What is the purpose of your club? Why does it exist? It's things that we're going to be looking at. And as we go through each section, each of these sections, when it says, oh, make a student interest survey, you're like, well, what should be in the survey? In the PDF guide is a complete example of a survey, as well as in the resource toolkit, which is this right here, you will find an actual sample of what that survey could be. So again, you'll be able to take these files and either use them as is with some minor edits, or adapt them, or just be inspired by them. So it's going to save you a lot of time and work, and it will allow you to put more time into being strategic and reflective about how you want this to be the best experience for your students, and less about the grunt work of trying to find the pieces and put them together. So that's just an overview of that and of what we're going to do, because by the end of the day, you're going to have this plan. And one last highlight we'll come back to later on is item 4 here. Item 4 is our esports learning guide. And what's really powerful about that, you'll see later on, is that when you're running meetings, like, well, what should we put in our meetings? How should we run our content? This has all these different modules on these different topics that you can explore with your students, and make that a little bit bigger here. So from culture building, because as you know, gaming world can be toxic at times, and how to navigate that, to thinking about content production, team strategy, statistics, and tactics, as well as thinking about fitness, nutrition, and women and gender equity in school, and mindful and mental health. For these are all topics that you could pull, because normally this is used for an elective course, but for a club, you could pull one of these modules, and that could be 4 to 5 of your meetings, part of your meetings, because part of your meetings you want the kids to have some free play, but these are intended to immerse them in understanding about esports and help support your goal for college and career readiness in this genre. So John, that's what I think about when you're mentioning Skillshot and their conference is coming up, and what they're trying to do, and what NASEF is trying to do, which are great resources or networks that you're part of. And then this can really help build a framework around how you might approach some of that work. So you'll have a chance to look at all of these pieces in a bit during the course of today. And then beneath that, you can see this is what our agenda is. So that's what we're doing. So before we get started, jump in. Are there any questions or comments about the logistics of what we're about to do? Okay. So with that in mind, let's begin with the code of conduct. You'll see that there's a link up here. This is Gamer Code of Conduct form. Hopefully you filled that out. If you've not, please do so. And beneath that, you'll see it says PDF for you. If you click that, you're going to get to see as a whole thing what the code of conduct that we're using looks like. And we did this because we want to model what you're going to do with your students. Because in your club, whether you're doing a club or a team, it's very important to have a gamer code of conduct. This long term, it would be great. I think John, you and I talked about this, having a district-wide code of conduct so that for gamers, so it's consistent across the board. And if that's the direction you go, then it'll be really valuable for all of you to give your input on like using this, for example, as a draft. I have access for you of a editable version that you can give some feedback so that John and his team can review it, and then as they decide what that would look like. But when you do this with your students, here's my question for you. Why is a gamer code of conduct important for your students to have? You can use the mic or the chat. And if you want to take a moment to reflect, go ahead. So you want to comment, avoid toxic environment? Absolutely. Emotions run high. Yeah. We think about the world of gaming. There can be a toxic element, and even if your students are not contributing to that toxic part of the community, they get to a point where they get so used to it that it becomes normal. It's kind of like the background, and so when they come into this type of environment, into your room, there's just that expectation that such bad behavior is accepted because they're just used to it. So by establishing what is the expectations for positive professional behavior, and that they sign off on it, then it becomes opportunities that when students struggle, it's a coaching conversation, not a disciplinary conversation. And so once you have students sign this gamer code of conduct, then you can come back and at least, if you're meeting once a week, then at least once a month, review parts, not the whole thing, but parts of the gamer code of conduct that you want them to be thinking about for that month. So for example, maybe we say, okay, group, we're gonna look at, I agree to be patient and supportive with myself and others. Now that's what we want our focus to be, because you're noticing that that's something that, maybe some people are not showing patience, or just being critical of others when it's obvious the skill level might be that not the same. So you might say, this is what we want to focus on, and why do you think this is important? And you have them explore that. And that's why you have, there's an explanation for each statement to give them context to have those conversations. Then you might say, all right, the other one we want to do is I agree to listen and follow directions. So whatever the ones you want them to focus on, then that becomes what they do. And then they reflect. So after each at the end of each meeting, you might say, all right, I want you, like I just did this with a group yesterday. I say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 4, because we did an activity around communication and collaboration. So I want you to silently rate yourself from a 1 to 4. How well did you communicate and collaborate? And I described what that looked like, because I didn't know what it looks like. Because like communication said, how well did you listen to others? How well did you share, give your input into, the ideas from the thing that the task they had to puzzle through. So they rated themselves. They didn't show it. And then I said, now I want you to rate your team. How well as a team did you communicate and collaborate? And then had described it again in concrete ways, like how well did everyone participate in giving feedback or asking for help? How well were people actively listening to what other people were saying and not just talking over each other? So they thought that number. And then I said, now, how many of you had the same score for yourself and your team? Only a few had raised their hands. And see, that then becomes a place of reflection. It's like, okay, I want you to talk to your team about, what was the difference? And so, and that in itself is usually a longer reflection. It would take about 3 minutes to do what I just described. Well, 3 minutes is not that long. Most reflections might simply be a minute to say, all right, I want you to think about how well you communicated and what would be your next step to be a better communicator. So they think about that. Or turn to a partner and share your ideas. So 30 seconds of silent reflection, 30 seconds of turning to a partner. Okay, now let's get into the club. Or let's dismiss them, whatever the case may be. Because if we don't take the time to do this at meetings, what happens for kids is what gets monitored gets done. What gets set aside and ignored becomes wallpaper. And we know wallpaper is just invisible. They just don't even know it's there. And so that's why if we truly believe that gaming culture is so important to create a positive experience, because we know what the toxicity can look like, we have to spend time. And in part, it justifies why we can have an esports club. Because the esports club is one of the, I'm not going to say the only, but it's one of the best opportunities to teach digital citizenship skills to our students, because they're so attuned to that, especially because if they're gamers, if they're better digital citizens, if they are better at showing professional behavior, they're going to play better. It's going to lead to better performance, competitive performance. So, and they'll understand that, because you know how people will post things in the chat in a game. And what a lot of professionals say, I've listened to some coaches who stream, have said, if you're posting in a chat, you're not playing the game. If your hand's on the keyboard and not on your mouse, you're not going anywhere. Which means, and I've seen it. I mean, where their champions get knocked out of the game because they're just standing there. And you're like, oh, they must be chatting. And it's like, all right. So gamer code of conduct is really important. I like that. Yeah, the comment Ryan said, if a toxic environment is created, it becomes less inclusive immediately. Absolutely. So this is why this is important to have your students sign, and have your parents of your students, parents, guardians, sign this as well, so they understand what the expectations are. And then the other thing that you may do then is, once that you have the gamer code of conduct done, is then also establish your club norms, which are usually 3 to 5 descriptors that the kids create. So you create the gamer code of conduct. These are your expectations. And then you allow the kids within those expectations to say, hey, what are the 3 to 5 things we're going to focus on every meeting, so that we feel like we can perform well and we feel like we're a family, a healthy family. And they can tell you. And by them creating that list, you've got instant buy-in because they are now accountable to it because they have to sign off on that. Any questions or comments about that? Okay. Then what I'd like to do is you'll see under here we have what can esports club bring as a value for schools. I have a PDF, and I'm just going to go through this with you, and you can always download this for your own reference. Can be really helpful in the work that you do and communicating to your stakeholders. And I just realized I have a better way. Got some things covered here. Oh, there we go. All right. So so it's always interesting when you look at something like this. It's amazing, especially people who don't compete and who don't follow esports. I mean, look at this arena. This is a I think this is an NBA arena. Someplace where they usually do basketball, could run concerts. And what's happening here is this is an international tournament in esports. This is Dota 2. And it's just amazing how you can go to these type of venues and watch esports. You get crowds as big or even bigger than the traditional sporting event, and people are excited to watch. Yeah, the players might look like dots, but isn't that true with the basketball game? But they watch the big screen. They're following the game. They're cheering. They're moaning when the team is losing. I mean, they're very much engaged. And you can find local competitions as well that do the same thing. And so we're just going to look at these different topics as we are just kind of get us all on the same page, but why this is important, why it is valuable to do this type of club. Okay, this is just a little bit information about myself as a gamer, lots of things that I have been involved in. But I've also been in education for over 30 years, and I was an English teacher, a history teacher. I was a coach of traditional sports as well as club sponsor. And I ran an esports summer camp last year, which was just an amazing experience. So this is just a definition, just a basic definition of what is esports. It's you have professional players who are playing video games with an audience that's watching. And what's important about why this is valuable for our students is because when we think about NACE as an example, which is National Association of Colleges and Employers, they do an annual survey of their constituents, which are colleges and employers, and look at what are the skills they say are most valuable for for incoming college students and incoming employees. Can I see, look at what the top 5 are. Now, here's my question. If our gamers are developing these skills, are they going to become better gamers? Yeah, I mean, likely that's going to happen if they build these skills. And if they build these skills in gaming, aren't these transferable skills into the classroom and the workplace? So it's just, and that's the key for a lot of your stakeholders in your school and district community, is that's what they need to understand, is that it's not just kids playing games, but by being in a structured environment that you provide, you can actually instill these skills in your students so that it transfers into the classroom. And this is what we want to be able to do. Now we look at this and just some data about revenue in esports. The money continues to grow. I mean, there are projections that it's going to exceeds over $1 billion we already know that in the gaming industry in general, that revenue is over is in the billions right now with different places. And what that means is there's a lot of money. If there's a lot of money, there are a lot more jobs there. There's one district who that talk about how their biggest concern for their parents about esports is that there's like, I don't want my kids spending time playing a computer game. I want them to study and become a lawyer, become a business person, to become an accountant. And what they're missing is that in the world of esports, you have lawyers, you have accountants, you have business people, you have administrative assistants, you have all these people who are needed in the esports industry, including these traditional fields. So it could be the best of both worlds, because several of these organizations have a preference for people who are gamers, basically who understand the gamer culture and can be part of that community. So there's just so much opportunities because of the money that's out there. And you can see how the growth continues to happen within esports in terms of viewership, people who watch across the world. So these are global stats in that regard. This is recorded, and I don't know if I have this accurate. I believe it was 2018 or 2019. The viewership of League of Legends for a semifinal game was for the World Championships in League of Legends exceeded the viewership of the Super Bowl. And you think about it, Super Bowl is currently the standard when you talk about looking at viewership, and so it just shows there's we have that. You're going to draw advertisers, and there's more and more of what I would call our traditional advertisers who are involved or getting into esports than we ever had before. And so that leads again to more opportunities because of the revenue that exists. And so these are just some examples of some of the different areas, the different fields of occupation. There are some of the obvious ones you can see that are in the technology field and even the sports field, but look at what else is there. For example, if you have someone who's in theater, like my daughter just got a degree as a stage manager, you need those for running the games. You need those production people. You need those HR people and marketing people. And in sports, look, you need nutrition and kinesiology. Yeah, even for someone sitting in a chair playing a game, we think about some of these matches that can go 3 to 5 hours. And if you have players who are not in shape, then to do that, they're not going to be as mentally aware. And as we can see in gaming is very much about being aware of what you see and what you know and how you react. And so those things are important, as well as you see like journalism. So before I go any further, any questions or comments? Anything like as far as like, oh, this is new, or this piece really I knew about, and just seeing it just gives more affirmation. All right. So these are just what you see on the right-hand side, the blue side these are just a sampling of games that are esports. So yes, Tetris is an esport. I really encourage you to go check it out on YouTube. When I watch it, I didn't think I would get so excited, and I was. It was actually intense to kind of watch a championship match go on. But I mean, this is just a sample of what's out there. If you know Stardew Valley, yeah, that is an esport. There's a speed run that goes with that. Minecraft has several esports connections to that tournament. So, I mean, there are different things that happen along with the more quote traditional esports. And on the left-hand side are just some of the different approaches that we can go into. Girls Who Game, which is supported and guided by Dell Technologies with Help Advanced Learning Partnership, is a great experience for girls to learn about not just gaming, but also coding. And a way to bring them in starting in grade 4 all the way to high school. And as they do design challenges. So there's just so much that we can offer students to raise access for each student to be a part of. And when you think about the money that's involved, at one point, a couple of years ago, we were talking about 15 up to 15 million in grants for college scholarships. It's now exceeds 20 million. I mean, the growth just continues to happen as more and more colleges are getting on board and being involved. So that those are opportunities, and not just as players, but also, looking at those who are going to cast games, those who are working on their production skills, those who are working on their marketing skills by promoting your clubs and your teams. Those are experiences that can go into their portfolio. They can be part of what they take when they apply to colleges and directly into jobs. I was just listening to a businessman yesterday in Texas who talked about, he said, one day I went to a school because he has an esports company, and he said, when he went to a local school and said, I need to find someone a student who has a portfolio of work around video editing. That's what he was looking for. And a couple of kids had portfolios, a couple of seniors, and so he looked at the portfolios, and he offered a job to one of them. And he said, years later, he's now working for some of the top esport companies on video editing that he found as a high school senior. So there's just so much opportunity for your kids to be involved. As they get involved, they maintain a digital portfolio of their work. And so you can think about just there's so many opportunities. That's what this is kind of summarizing what we just looked at. Okay, I just want, before I go into the next part of this, because it's a lot of information I just gave you, what questions or observations do you have? What either questions you have or new ideas that you have that you think would be beneficial for the others to be thinking about? So just so you know, whenever I pause like that, because I learned when I was writing an article for Edutopia about the value of silence, is there have been several studies done in schools about how long do teachers pause after asking a question. John can't answer this because he heard this already, but what do you think is the average length of time a teacher pauses after asking a question before speaking again? Okay, one answer is less than 10 seconds, 5 seconds. The average length of time, now when I used to, before the pandemic, I visited a lot of schools, also internationally, I'd go into classroom, so I'd kind of compare. And I found the results were very close to what the studies found, which was the average length of time a teacher pauses after asking a question, and I'll post this in the chat, is 0.9 seconds. So you think about that, it doesn't give students time to process and answer the question. They might have the answer, but they need time to process how they want to shape their answer. So they found that if you pause for at least 3 seconds, there was a significant increase in participation. And I always recommend, from my world of differentiation, that we should pause 5 to 15 seconds, depending upon the complexity of the answer. So just know, after I ask you a question, I just sit here and stare back at you. It's not a competition. I'm just counting in my head, usually like 10 to 15 seconds to give people space. So I noticed, let's see, Alex said, gaming devices can be, so a question. And so, John, you might be able to, jump in with some thoughts on this. And we do have a document I'm going to share a little bit later from our previous group that will have some of this as well. Gaming devices can be expensive. What are some suggestions on how to fund the clubs and teams? John, you want to share your thoughts on that? Because I know you shared that with the coaches group.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know. You want me to go over that now?
Just a snippet, because then when we get to the need to knows, I'll show them the bigger answer.
Are you gonna show the need to know document? Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So we have like an extended or expanded answer to the question. But and to Ryan, your question right now, we have PC and Switch working. We have not gotten into Xbox or PlayStation. However, based on the way IT has organized things, I believe as long as it's hardwired in the esports room, it should work. I just don't have an Xbox or PS4 to test. So, but I think the way that they're setting this up, it should work. The only problem we're having with the Switch is a little difficult because it doesn't work like normal. So they're still testing the Switch. We can't play school to school yet, but they're working on that. Hopefully that'll be fixed in a week. But regarding funding, a big part of funding becomes, the first thing everyone thinks of is you got to have these $2,000 machines, which is nice. They're showy, they're flashy. But you could start your club, honestly, you could start your club today with Minecraft, because most of our computers, with the exception of Chromebooks, can run Minecraft. And it's already installable for all of your kids. So that's a start right now, that you don't really need any additional things at your school other than the Dell computers. From there, though, a lot of it becomes making, if your principal's on board, they can help you fund things, find other additional, line items of money that they could pool for things like a Switch, which is only $300. So you could have a couple of Switches, and that starts your community off, your gaming club off. And you could also make it so that kids can bring their own devices if they want, since this is more not competitive, right? We're not looking at competing heavily against other schools and entering competitions right now. This is more fun play. So like kids can also bring their own device, and you just have comfortable seating for them wherever, and they plug in and play. And then from there, it's really just, we've just been looking for grants. We're asking for sponsorships from local businesses. Part of what we focus on is not just playing the game, but the whole ecosystem. So what I've been trying to do with Palm Beach Lake specifically is, having the kids fundraising, having the kids reaching out to local businesses for sponsorships for their club. So, and then there's some other grants out there and things like that we can talk about as well. So that's kind of a high level funding question.
And I'll share some details from a document in just a moment, where you'll have it to refer back to. The only thing I just would add to the conversation, John, please clarify if it needs to be, is that if you having students bring their own equipment, it's a great idea, because the way for them involved is you might have some type of a waiver that they sign, and parents sign about, they can bring their stuff, but they're responsible for it if something happens to it. Even if someone else breaks something or whatever, it's not the school's responsibility, it's theirs.
Yeah, the big thing I would say, if they're bringing their own thing, is like, if the club's not meeting in your room after school, that you have them drop it off to your room, and you have a locked area that you keep it locked up all day, so they don't have to carry it around all day. That I think would help work on that. So yeah.
Okay, cool. And so here's where it was good we had that conversation, because I want to segue into the social emotional connections that are so important about esports. So here, this is an example. You see DePaul University, and this is from their work beginning the school year 2019-2020. And on the right-hand side, you can see what they had, the teams, but once you pay attention to the intramural program, where they had over 1,200 students. And then when they did some perceptual surveys with them, this is what they found, and they found this aligned with nationally with other groups. Sense of students were reporting a greater sense of belonging because of esports. having an esports program, class attendance increase, assignment completion increase, grades were improving. I mean that. In some sense, you think, well, that can seem surprising, and yet when we think about participation in traditional sports, don't we see the same thing? Where people, or kids who want to be part of those programs or those clubs, is that because they found their tribe, and that's what we're finding here, is that there are groups of students who have found something that they really want to be a part of at school, and this is what they are the result of this. Now, you look at some of the questions they ask, like this one says, not including esports organizations, how many other student organizations are you a part of? And you'll see the green was only part of esports, which was 48% of them were only part of esports, which aligns with 47% with national surveys. Here's what this means. This means that there were almost half the kids involved are saying this was the first time there was some formal sponsored activity by their school that they felt connected. That they felt now they were a part of the school community. And that's really powerful when you think about when kids are looking for ways to feel connected as opposed to just being a guest at the school. And if they feel connected, then they want to participate. They want to get involved. Here's another one. Now, this question was asking, basically, how many people did you feel connected to? And so the green is, since because of the esports program, I feel like, I've got people I can hang out with at school. And the blue was, I've got one or two friends now because of the program. When you combine that together, we're saying 63% of the participants in the survey were saying esports was a place where they found their tribe, they found their people. There was a place they could go and feel connected at school. And I mean, there are other studies that talk about when students feel connections in the school organization, it just helps them, in many ways. And so that's really a valuable piece to be thinking about. So I mentioned I ran a summer camp, and I asked a similar question around, did you meet new gamers? Did you meet people that you want to hang out with and play? And when you look at this, the blue would be no one. And so pretty much, if you just combine, the numbers, it was over 95% of the students at the camp said that they met someone that they felt connected to when playing at the camp. And this was something important. By the way, the numbers for how many felt that they found that the camp was the esports camp, which was the first ever in this district, was just the first thing that they've ever been a part of. We had equivalent numbers of about 42% of respondents saying that yes, this camp was the first time they found something that connected them to the school. So, I mean, these social emotional connections are just so important when we're trying to build that. Now, again, there are a bunch of students who are already connected to school who do other things, and this is just one more thing to help them. And yet, half your students who will likely get involved may be students who don't feel like don't feel like school is a place that they want to be a part of or feel welcome to be a part of. And that doesn't mean you're not doing all you can to help them feel welcome. It's just saying they're just not seeing formal opportunities. And esports, when you start the club, it can make that difference. Especially after this last couple of years. Yeah, I mean, the pandemic, this has done a lot. Not a lot of positive things. So this is a way to really bring people back and feel more than ever that sense of belonging, which is really important. If you have any questions, comments, any points, just feel free to share them. I just want to go through this. So here's your quiz. There was a Pew study that asked, basically looked at what % of boys and girls play video games. What do you think those are? Don't cheat and look ahead. Just kind of post your guess in the chat, and then let's see what I'll share with you. So we have 80% boys, 60% girls is one guess. Let's see what other people's guesses are. Okay, 90, 80, 90, 70. All right. So what we found was it was 97% of boys, 83% of girls. And this is really important because especially the girls component is that we see these numbers, and yet when I look at clubs and teams and look at who's showing up, what are the faces do I see there? It's predominantly boys. There are few to no girls in these groups. I mean, there are some, but when you look at the ratios and you look at how it reflects the school, it doesn't hit those numbers. It doesn't match. And all that means is part of the conversation is that when you plan, because you'll have some time to kind of plan and think about how you're going to communicate, how you're going to do outreach, it's very important to have an intentional plan for how are you going to connect with girls and with any other groups that you feel that might feel marginalized to show up. I've heard many stories from club sponsors and coaches and even teachers of esports classes who have said, like one said, you know, I was doing an informational meeting and I had all these boys in here and I saw two girls in the hallway who walk up to the doorway, peek in and walk away. Well, that's not surprising when we think about, you know, outside of school in the gaming world, the toxicity that is towards women is tremendous. And so, you know, their perception can be that they don't want to be, you know, the two girls in a room of 20 boys. You know, and so that makes it so important to think about how are we marketing, how are we communicating and doing outreach and recruitment. Again, I just did this session with a staff in Texas, and we had 40% of the people there were women. And you know, one of the things that they talked about is ideas. It's like it would be is looking at how can we bring in, even if it's volunteer staff, so that that reflect both genders, you know, male and female, to kind of be able to help send a more inclusive message, and then leverage how you communicate through them. And if that's not possible, then how do you bring different kids into your planning team who reflect some of the different groups that you're looking to bring in, because then they can be part of your recruitment. What are your reaction, thoughts, or questions about this idea about directly doing outreach to ensure that you can get closer to these numbers in your representation in your clubs and teams? You can use the mic or you can use the chat. Actually, you know what? Because this is a really important point here. I'm going to make breakout rooms and put you guys into pairs so that you can actually feel comfortable talking. I'm going to pause the recording because it doesn't record when you're in the breakout rooms. But let me find my breakouts. I'm going to automatically put you into 2 groups. And once you're in the group, you're going to have 3 minutes to talk. And let me stop the recording or pause the recording. Okay, so let's hear from each group. What are some either questions or ideas that either you shared or you heard your colleagues share that would benefit everyone else here?
Alex had a really good idea as far as just a like a low-cost buy-in, as far as doing something during lunch just to kind of bring the individuals, because I have not done this before, obviously, but I've been a debate coach, and I was brought in kind of just on a whim, and it was definitely difficult to start something where you're competing with a variety of other activities. So all of these kids, they're told, oh, you got to be involved in a billion different things. So and typically those things occur after school. But a good way, he was saying, to get them, to bite down, is to offer the initial meetings at lunch, and especially as far as the inclusivity of the girls is concerned, maybe even do kind of an all girls thing, or like a girls in gaming theme, to get them to be more comfortable, to where they're more likely to not be concerned about that stigma of girls in gaming. So I thought that was an excellent way to approach that. And I was also telling him that in case you guys are not aware, or if you have Prime, there's a new movie that's called One Up. I just watched the trailer last night, and it looks hilarious, but it's about girls in gaming and the stigma that exists, and how they were going to create a team themselves, because the boys were like, oh, you're only here because you're girls, you don't have skill, and blah blah blah. So but yeah, that was a really excellent idea that I will definitely be stealing from Alex.
Yeah, Everett also talked about game choice as well. Is pretty important when you're looking at females. Maybe not some fighting games, but like if you're using a Switch, Mario Kart is always a good one for a lot of guys and girls. They'll both compete in Mario Kart. So yeah, definitely game choice, I think, is a good one.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one thing we share is the alternate role, managing social media for female students to build interest. I mean, that could be a draw. We just also want them to feel comfortable with the game if they want to game. If we know that 83% of girls do game, then we want them to feel comfortable in that space, and recognize that there might be toxicity out there, but in the club, there won't be. And and it's important for them to understand that it's not the girls' responsibility to help the boys learn and understand, but rather it's the boys need to learn, but while they're learning, giving the girls that safe space to be able to do what they love and enjoy is to play. All right, great, good thought thinking. So let's just a few more things here. These are just some quotes from different students. So this is from Albuquerque Public Schools. This is one student says about esports, having an esports club is, I'm often antisocial and don't like to get involved in club activities. Esports is my first time meaningfully participating in extracurricular activities. So this goes back to how, there are kids who don't feel that they're reflected in the school, and this is a way for them to feel connected. And this was a college student. Finding a community where people share the same interest in me has given me a great friend group. I've become a more confident person as a result, and I'm willing to put myself out there more and have new experiences. So these are things that we want to happen, and we can do that through the clubs that we do. All right, so let me go here. Back to this page. So you have this as a PDF, and then if you click this link here, this is the need to know activity, which is in that same space, and we probably drop a link in the chat for you. But so what this shows is I worked with some of your colleagues who are looking at starting a team, and we asked the question, but what do they know about esports already? And then what do they want to know about esports? So take a moment, just kind of see what they know, what's out there. And then you'll look at these questions. I want you to look at these questions for a moment and see, I think you're going to find some of the answers you're looking for. And then I'm going to ask you at the bottom, you'll see, well, we don't have it here. Hold on. At the bottom, I would like you to add at least one other question that you'd like to get an answer to regarding clubs or esports, before we wrap up today. So let's just take 4 minutes so you can read this, and then add your own questions.
So I see that there's no first-person shooters for good reason, and I see that Overwatch is being researched as far as being used because it's cartoony. Is Fortnite used basically for the same reasons? It's cartoony. It's not really a first-person shooter. There's no blood.
Yeah,
It's not
no.
really.
Fortnite's also another one right now, not allowed. So,
Really.
and just so it's clear, it's not something, you know, my team has dictated. That's come directly from the superintendent and the chief of police. So, you know, and some of what I shared in the other group is like it's something that's growing. So, oftentimes a lot of people in the higher up positions don't really understand what esports is, and you know, oftentimes the first thing I hear is, you know, oh well, that's violent, and violence, video games cause, you know, all these problems, which they don't understand. The research is there. So my role, you know, I know we laugh at it, right, because we've grown up with it, but it's a different generation for most of them. And so my role is convincing them and showing them, you know, why this is a viable thing, and why, you know, it's not just kids playing games. It's much more than that. So, you know, that's why I'm saying with Overwatch, my goal is, you know, just to work with them to get them to understand, you know, there's a lot of the 4 C's in there, the critical thinking, collaboration, all of that to get to be successful. So it's just more me being able to educate higher ups, which is often difficult because I don't have easy access to them either. So, but it is being worked on, and we are trying to get there. So, and the other thing I say to that is, you know, obviously the first thing the kids are going to say they want to play is Call of Duty, right? I want to play that, or I want to play Fortnite, and I understand that. And once they understand, you know, well, the district says we can't right now, but we're going to play this game, you know, like Palm Beach Lakes is playing Rocket League. The kids are just as involved in Rocket League as they would have been Call of Duty. Like they are, once they're playing, they become engaged. It's just getting past that initial, oh, you know. So yeah, that's what we found over the past 2 years.
Okay, a couple more minutes.
What is meant by number 9? What do you do if students break the norms?
So that has to do with, we have a gamer code of conduct, and then you also want to have gamer norms that the students create. So it might be, they might have a norm that says, you know, community, be an act, show respect through listening when others are talking, and to give, so they're not talking over each other or at each other type of thing. So let's say there's a player who's not doing that, and then at that point, that's a coaching conversation. It's not a disciplinary conversation in that type of case. And part of the coaching conversation is with the student because of herself, but it's also with the other students that they're having issues with it, because are they addressing that, or are they just ignoring it until it blows up? Because if they're ignoring it until it blows up, then it's like, well, what could you have done sooner to address this? Because by the students creating the norms, they are responsible for not policing, but holding each other accountable to those norms. So it's not, the idea is that we don't want them running to the teacher as the first line of redress. We want them to handle it themselves.
And so how would you approach that? I mean, obviously, the first step would be to have a conversation with, or obvious to me, would be to have a conversation with that student that is causing the issue, breaking the norms. I mean, how do you prevent that from transitioning from coaching to disciplinary? Because just my experience is repetitive behaviors that are undesirable, they got to have some kind of consequence. And then as soon as you say consequence, you're into disciplinary of some fashion. So I guess I'm not,
sure.
I don't have a lot of experience with that. So how would you stop that transition from occurring to keep it coaching as opposed to authoritarian?
Yeah, so I'm dropping a link to this page I'm showing here. So this kind of shows an example of with what norms might look like, and some steps to have students create the norms. So again, the kids create the norms, and then they sign it, give the autograph by saying they support the norms. So let's say these are the norms on the right-hand side, example norms. And let's say we have one that says, pause the show listening, number 4. And you've got a kid who's constantly talking over the other people, and just like, do this, do that. And other people try to say something and they just talk right over, no, you just do it this way because I know how to do it. You don't. So that happens, and you might come in and facilitate a conversation between the kids and try to address it. And then you make a judgment call, because it's like maybe only it's one conversation. I always say try to have 2 conversations if it comes up again with the same person, so a repeat offender, I guess. And if it happens a 3rd time, then maybe it's time to transition to a consequence. I mean, it's not that we don't give consequences, that we can't do that. It's that we want to say our first couple steps is we want to presume that they are not used to, they don't have the skill. They're not skillful in listening. They're still used to whatever the toxicity that they deal with in their when they're playing games and environment, that they just think this is how you act. And this, when you have built-in behaviors, it's hard to just shift. So they might need a couple of times. And if it seems like they're making an attempt, then we give them more opportunities and we continue to coach them. If we feel it's getting to a point where it's actually harming the environment and they're just not really putting either the effort or putting enough effort, then then at that point you might be saying, okay, just so you know, if it happens again, we might have to talk about disciplinary actions and or things like that. So those are things to consider. Are you guys getting background noise on my end? Dogs barking? A little bit? Okay, you can mute it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you could do like a suspension. So what's nice about that is a suspension for a week is not like a lifetime sentence. It's like, hey, you know what? I think you're gonna need to not show up to the next meeting and take some time to reflect on what you need to work on. And if you want, you come back then you come back with the understanding that you're going to work on this. And then we'll bring you back into the family. But you might call it suspension, you might call it an unpaid vacation, just spend them and that type of thing. But the big main idea is that we want them to learn and grow with that. So like I said, the norms can be helpful. One of the things that we can do, I'm just looking to see if I have it here. I don't think I have it elsewhere. There's another, wait, no, I don't want that. That's not what I wanted. I wanted the mediation protocol. Do I have it here? Yep, I do. So mediation process, which is right here. I'm going to click this link. Okay. Oops, didn't want to do that. I want that. So the mediation, this is another thing you can do. And so when you have students in your classroom, when they work in teams, when student teams get dysfunctional, who usually has to fix the situation or begin the fix? Yeah, I can see it's usually the adult, it's usually the teacher. So if that's the case, and that's usually like about 95% of the time, that's the response I get, then that means the students haven't learned how to diffuse issues. So this is called the mediation protocol. And the idea behind it is that this is based upon work that an organization did, New Tech Network for project-based learning. And I just kind of took the idea and adapted a little bit for this. And they called the firing clause, I thought is more like a mediation protocol. And the idea here is, how can we have the students find an equitable solution to the problem? And so the first step is, this is all about teams, but you can do this as a club. In your club, if there's a problem with a student, then there's a one-on-one conversation by another student. So it could be a student officer who has the conversation. It could be any student can do it. They have a conversation. Did I drop this link in? Oh, I didn't drop the link in. Let me drop the link in. Hold on, let me go back for a moment. I want to make sure I got this link to the whole article. There you go, it's in there. And the idea of that one-on-one conversation is to find a solution. We want the kids to find a solution. If they can't find a solution, then you have an intervention by either the whole club or just a group of club members, like 3 or 4 members with that student to find a solution. As a teacher, it counts the sponsor, you might facilitate the process, but you're not participating in the process. You don't have a say or a voice in step 1 and 2, except to facilitate. So if someone says, John says to me, well, you're being lazy, you might say, I think what John's trying to say is you're not carrying your own weight as much as they need you to. So you kind of help facilitate that conversation. And again, the whole purpose of this is to find a solution. We're not trying to discipline or kick anyone out. We just want them to find a solution. If step 2 doesn't work, then step 3 is where the teacher or the sponsor is part of the conversation and helps participate in shaping what the solution is going to be. And if that doesn't work, then maybe in this case, step 4 is some type of accountability piece. Like, all right, you got a 1-week vacation or a 2-week vacation, and during that time, I need you to think about, how you're going to communicate better, and I need you to record or write a reflection, to express how you're going to address that. I say record because some kids may not want to write it, but they might be willing to record it, their thinking, or it might be have the option to, meet with the team again and share how you're going to do a better job. Now, so this is a way to give them structure to understand, so to empower them to have professional conversations. So that is that. Oh my gosh, okay. And those are really good comments. So what I want to do is I want to now, because we're going to be, the next thing is can I do a tour of the the document itself. But I think what we're going to do is, before we do that, I think we're going to take our stretch break now, give people kind of a moment to refresh their tea or water or whatever, or a bathroom break. And we're going to take a 10-minute break. And let's, it's 10:22. So if we can come back at 10:32, and then we're going to continue from there. All right. I'll see you guys all at 10:32. All right, we are ready to do a little bit of a dive into the document itself. I'm just trying to find it here for it. So I want to just emphasize a couple things from the document. And sorry, just looking where I put it. Here we go. New share. So this is the document. You know, when you look at the resources, resource number one is this document that I'm showing you right here. And so you can make this a little bigger here. So what is important about this document is that it has all the different steps that you need in order to complete your club planning. And so we looked at a few things, and I'm just going to jump to that. And the first thing is the checklist, which is on page 8. You know, if you're looking at yours, about a clear screen, and this gives all the different steps that you do. So the alignment, the purpose statement is the first one. Then, you know, define the club purpose. Like I said, the purpose statement has already been done, and I'm going to be adding that into a link so you can see what your district already has. And then you're going to do your own club purpose statement, and we have some draft language that you can incorporate. Now, just as a reference point, I'm going to jump around because, you know, you have, like, this talks about interest survey, the informational email that you might send out. All of these are in this plan, in this document. I'm gonna let you, you know, you're gonna get a chance to explore this document to see what's there. So create an alignment to purpose document. What it does is it includes, you know, this type of framework, which where you would just fill in on the left-hand side the school district's purpose statement. On the right-hand side, you do the alignment. But as I said, we have one for your district, and I was just going to look for it. Let me take a moment and grab that off on this other screen so that you have it.
And just one quick caveat on that, we're not finalized with all of the language, but you can kind of just see, you know,
Yeah,
not officially approved, just so everyone's aware, but my director and I kind of went through some of them. We just didn't get through all of them.
yeah, very good point. So that's, yeah, so it's draft language. Some of it is subject to change. We are, you know, I know they're working on some important key, like word choices in that. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to grab the whole plan because that is a draft. It's still in process. I don't want to do that. But what I do want to do is, here it is just so you can see where the thinking is evolving. All right, and fortunately, I have Club Institute.
And while he's looking, I think another thing that you can do with this planning piece too is if you have like missions or visions or values in your SAC plan, especially if you want to go talk to your principal, taking any kind of school-wide statements that you use and then aligning the esports connection to that. Anything like that helps you just be more relevant when you're trying to speak to your admins about getting this funded or anything like that.
Yeah, and what I'm going to do is, rather than like linking that in, I'm going to go into the chat, And I'm going to drop the link there. So you can actually look at the crosswalk, a draft of the crosswalk that the district is working on. So you can use that as a reference point to kind of get thinking. So here's, again, this is an example from another district and what they put together. Again, you don't have to do this. It's already been done for your district. And my intent is that it's not that you're going to draft any language. You're just going to read to think about what is the points of emphasis that you might want to incorporate into your purpose statement. So your purpose statement as a club, it could be something like this, which is, this is from another district, and what they had for their program, their purpose statement, and what they wanted for their, for all their parts of what they believe in. You also have an example of this as well. Wait, hold on. Sorry. Here it is. Well, my point is, all of they're examples in the document, both in the front end as well as in the dependencies at the back end. And so that's just a sample there. And I don't want to go through this whole document because I want to give you a chance to review and look at for yourself. However, I do want to just remind about your planning guide. So remember this, you made a copy or you're going to make a copy, is that this is where you would fill that information in. And also remember that in your agenda, when you're working, in the reference section, we have this resource toolkit. So if you open up that resource toolkit, you'll see there's an example of a gamer school purpose statement. And so you can click that, and you can take that language and adapt it. For example, or you can use the example that's in the guide itself that has, at the end of the dependencies, that has a more simplified version of this. So lots of options that you can use when you're working on your club. So you'll see here in a moment, I'm going to give you some work time. And during that time, what I encourage you to do is, this part's already been done, so you don't need to do this, but you have the option of working on your club purpose statement, or you can go to the student survey and start to create your version of your survey, or look at draft your language for informational meeting, or give some feedback about what a gamer code of conduct can look like. When you think about revising any of these pieces, let's find that, I'm trying to look for in the template, we have different examples. Oh, I just realized that's a gamer school purpose. Here's the gamer club purpose. Sorry, I knew this was a different one. See, it could be as simple as this. It doesn't have to be an elaborate statement about basically why does your club exist? Description, and then some key pieces that you can also use for that. But there's drafts of what you could use for a gamer code of conduct. And these are all Google Docs. You can copy and make copies of them so you can make edits for yourself as you look at this. So again, in your planning template, this is where, whatever section you decide to work on, this is where we'd like you to put it so that you have your portfolio of work for your clubs right here. And this makes it easier for John and his team to support you and seeing the direction you're going with as you're creating those components. Okay, so when we look at the agenda, let me see, these are suggested areas to work on. Are there any questions about the directions before I set you loose? Okay, so you can work individually. You can also work in pairs or as a team. I'm going to reconfigure the breakout rooms so that there'll be 2 rooms. You can choose to join a room, or you can stay in the main room here to work there. And I'll be on, even if my camera is off, I'll be listening in the main room so that if If you have a question for me, just come back into the main room and I will be happy to answer those questions. Okay, all right, we're all good to go. Then just again, a reminder, if you haven't done so already, click this link to make a copy of your planner. And then, which is 1C right here. Also click this link to get a PDF of the guide itself if you haven't done so already. And then have this resource toolkit opened up so that you can have access to all the editable files. Okay, you will have, I believe, how much time did we give? We gave for this first body of work, because there's a lot there to do. You have till 11:30 to work on that. And then we'll come back together and look at our next piece. All right, this time is yours.
I had a meeting at my school, meet the principal.
That's okay.
All right. That's right, Nelly, because you attended the coaches session. So a lot of the things we talked about, I think at that point you'd already have reviewed. But in the agenda, Nelly, when you're in there, you are going to want to under references to resources, you're going to want to download the PDF under item 1. And then you're also going to want to download item 1B and open up the link to 1A, because 1A it's a folder of editable resources you can use to map what you want to do for your club. And Esports 1B is a working guide that you can put your content in for the club you're shaping. And we're about to get into item 4, the Esports Learning Guide for teachers and learners and coaches, which you're all going to want to have a copy of that opened as well. Let me go to where we are. So what we're looking at are these ideas here that, let me make this even bigger. Where we're thinking about the club activities and how we plan for those club activities, because once you have your club put together, when you put those documents together you've been working on, and you may not finish it, and that's fine, you'll have some more work time after lunch to finish it. These are things to think about, and so that item 1 is building a supportive culture. When you have your esports guide for clubs open, and now I gotta figure out which one of these. It's not it. Nope, that's not it. Just have it open. Okay. And if you go to page 72 in that PDF, you're going to find that there are the first 4 meetings are examples of what the first 4 meetings could look like if we wanted to use this to launch. And the whole intent behind these first 4 meetings is to establish that culture, that gamer culture with your students. So you'll see like the opening piece is doing some type of get to know each other type piece, and then get into just some initial conversations about culture. And then when you'll see as this maps out, that actually, you have them review the gamer code of conduct, and then you give them some structured free time. And kind of that free time where kids get to pick what games they're going to play from the list of games you have available. So they don't get to pick any game. They can go, oh, we're doing FPS. Well, no, that's not available. It's the ones in the club that you have available that they can pick from. And then it gives you a chance to watch them play, to see what type of attitudes and behaviors do they exhibit when they're playing, because you can leverage that for day 2 when you get into teaching the specific skills you want them to develop. So that's what the first meeting is all about. And then you can see there's always a reflection. We might say, we want them to be thinking about gamer code conduct while they play, and then have them reflect on how they did. And then you'll get into the second agenda, and this is where we're now going to establish the community expectations or the norms. And this is like the first part. And so this goes through suggested steps for how you might do it. Gives you two options for doing this process. Pick the one that works best for you or adapt the one that you would prefer. And this is how they start to, basically they play a game to help them think and reflect on, what makes for a positive gaming experience just by having it fresh from playing some type of collaborative game. And then you're going to leverage that to, give them some opportunities. Again, they get some free time. Students really value having free time as part of the experience. That's why they come. And then what happens is on day 3, you continue working on establishing those expectations or norms, and it gives you some steps for how you can do that. And by the end of this day, they're going to have their norms, 3 to 5 norms on chart paper that they agreed on, and they're going to sign off on that. And then they get structured free time again. So you always have structured learning and then structured free time. This is one way of doing it. You could do it other ways. I'm just giving you this as an example to think about. And you'll notice in each of these agendas, it's always a gamer reflection piece at the end, where they're reflecting about their behavior based upon the norms and that of their peers. And then you can see how this will continue. Now we reviewed the norms, and then they do some type of activity where they're learning and growing, learning about the industry, or exploring a genre, a game genre that maybe they may or may not be familiar with, and then they have some free time. And this is just, if you're going to do intramurals, there's some more stuff here to help support that. So again, this goes back to the idea of what are you going to do the first couple days of your club, which if you meet once a week, for example, then doing something using these lessons would actually, or meeting agendas will actually support your plans, your meetings, like you have for the first month or a month and a half, depending upon when you start. And then you just got to plan for what you're gonna do after that. Any questions or comments about those lesson pieces, which you'll get a chance to explore again? That begins on page 72 of the document. And also know that the folder, oops, that's not it. In the folder, that's item 8. If you want an editable version of those meetings, you can just grab that. Okay. Then, esports, there's lots of esports genres. So in the chat or use your mic, what are some genres you think there are? We have FPS, so you can't say that since we've already mentioned that before. But besides FPS, what are some other genres, game genres that exist for esports?
Fighting games?
Yeah, fighting games. Those are, yep, puzzle, RPG are some. You got sports games like NBA 2K, Rocket League, which fit under sports games. It's cars playing soccer, but you also have FIFA. Yeah, racing and simulations are some. MOBAs are some. If you think about Dota or League of Legends, things like that. So there's a lot of different genres. And what's so cool about a club is it's an opportunity to have students explore some of those genres. There might be genres they never even have your experience, like speedrunning is a genre that crosses over all the different types of game titles. So you can do things around that. You could do creative challenges in Minecraft, where they do design challenges in that space. So there's And I share with you is because sometimes your structure might be like, there may be some weeks of meetings where it's like, you know, I just want them to play and I want them to think about different genres they've never done before. So like for example, in the camp I ran, one point we did Super Smash Brothers to introduce the fighting genre, and everyone participate in like a mini tournament just to kind of learn about that genre. And afterwards, during free time, it was one of the titles that was available for kids to play. And I saw some of the kids who actually who never played before went back to play more because they were suddenly really interested in what this could look like. We did one around we did one with League of Legends and Smite, and we had students explore those. And afterwards, sure enough, a couple of kids who'd never played one or the other went back and were like spending time in that because they're just intrigued by what they could do with it. The kids don't know what they don't know. They tend to pick their comforts, and during free time, they should absolutely be able to do that. It's just that when you have structured time, that's the opportunity to introduce other games. And then if you introduce these games, you get to reinforce the norms because you know when kids are playing, a gamer is playing a game that's new to them that they've never played before, they're likely going to play poorly initially. So learning how to be patient, how to ask for help, these are opportunities for them to practice those things. And you can bring that up in a reflection at the beginning of the meeting, and then do as a reflection at the end of the club session where they're taking time to think about that. Free play, as I said before, I'm gonna say it again, I'll say it many times, is one of the #1 things that kids are excited about. And during, and when they do free play, that's also a time for them to practice the norms and the gamer code of conduct and use that as the reflection piece. So it's always connected back to those professional behaviors we want them to work on and just to reinforce during the process. So you give them that, and also at the time, if you're going to do, as we'll talk about later on, content production, you might want to ask students during a free play for permission to record their games, because then that becomes footage that later on in the club that students who want to do content creation can go back to and use, and in their practice of what they're doing. Okay, and again, if you think you might do an in-house, in-club tournament or a school-wide tournament, this is an opportunity for working with your students to plan it so that they are running the tournament, and they could also even play in the tournament, but the key is that they actually run the tournament and get that experience of managing and structuring what that tournament could look like. And then the document, you'll see a whole section about how you can break out the tournaments. And then the last one that's just, we'll come and spend more time on it later on, is think about how you might maintain a club blog. Initially, so you can announce and promote the things that you're doing in the club, but later on, where students can do journalism and around esports about what the club's doing, or even outside of the club, just the esports topic, and they can write articles or create videos to talk about those topics and then publish them. What questions do you have? And if you don't have questions, if you can share with the mic or in the chat, what is an area of these lists that most intrigues you for taking care of the work?
Would so I keep going back to how am I going to have the tech, the devices for my students to actually be, physically involved with it instead of just like meetings and such. Would a good option, a cost-efficient option for this be club or competitive, team-wise, those newer classic versions of like the Segas, the Nintendos, the plug and play? Is that something that is in esports, or would that be more for just introduction of a different genres? Is it something that they could use to practice if they were to do the competitive portion of this, or would it be more would it be better to just stick with either consoles or traditional consoles or the PCs, that type of thing?
I think exposure-wise, those things could be kind of interesting if you had one or two of those and maybe a TV that they're connected to. Especially some of the old school games, like I grew up on Nintendo, that kind of stuff would be, historical perspective. I don't see much of that like in any types of competitions or anything.
Okay.
The easiest and cheapest start for starting to compete would probably be Switch. So like with the grant we started with, we ended up purchasing 5 Switches and some TVs. And we kind of just lined up the TVs and then connected the Switches to the TV. So then you could at least have 2 kids per Switch playing. The advantage that also was that, so for example, like one of the goals is that you guys will be able to start talking to one another as coaches from school to school and setting up maybe even, I know this is more club based, but maybe your kids do want to play against another school. You could ask another coach, anyone want to play against us in Rocket League or Mario, whatever, whatever game it is, and possibly even like visit the school. So physically take the Switch to the school. And that's why I think, for clubs, starting with the Switch and even a bring your own device kind of Switch thing, maybe you are able to get some TVs that then they connect their Switch to, so more kids could play. But that's probably the cheapest starting off point, and honestly, you're going to be in Wellington. 99% of your kids are going to have all 3 consoles, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I'm not familiar. I've been at the wealthier schools. I've been at Title I schools. There's usually, some, fluidity as far as the commonalities between them. But, and going back to, because you mentioned TVs a few times, and I know that so many schools, and I guess it's a district-wide thing, since they're trying to push the smart board integration and kind of move away from the projectors. Do you know if at the district there's just this stockpile of projectors that we would be able to request, because you can set those up in several places along the walls. Just use a sheet or get some stock paper or whatever.
I don't think we have a stockpile. Your tech might be able to ask, because while we moved to smart panels, we actually did not remove the projectors. So teachers will have a projector and the smart panel, but you could use the smart panel as one of your displays. You could plug into the projector as a second display for another game. So you could be creative, borrow the neighbor's smart panel too. So you have 2 panels and a projector in your room. So there's 3 big screens now. Getting creative that way, wherever you are.
Yeah, there's thoughts, and thing is, with it, you can have in club tournaments on any game. There may be, for the games that there's not necessarily esports or competition outside of the school or district, you can create those competitions. If you're like, give us like a game that the kids just are really like your love, or you think it would just be fun and light for them to do that and then practice digital citizenship, you could do that. And maybe have some of the kids help you plan it, so there's even more buy-in to that. That's the beauty of the club. It's so open.
I apologize, I missed Everett's question as well in the chat about what do most schools use. So with our pilot, we had 6 schools, and we were able to fund 3 of them. So the other 3 schools kind of built it up on their own. So we've had a mix. So, and now granted, the focus of the grant was more competitive, like creating competitive teams, not so much the club. The club is something new right now that we've been working on this summer. So what we did is, like I said, we did 5 Switches and we did 10 computers, gaming computers for the schools with the grant. Depending on the game you want to play though. So for example, if you want to get closer to competitive, Rocket League only needs 3 computers because it's 3v3. But you could also play Rocket League on a Switch. It's a smaller screen, sure, but Rocket League still works on a Switch. So, there is a mix, I think. I think, and especially for the club, having access to that mix where you may have, this corner we're doing the Sega stuff, with those little boxes. This corner we've got Switches, we've got some PCs over here with Rocket League or maybe League of Legends. We've got over here something else. Chess was a big one this year. Chess came back pretty heavily, even in competition. So maybe you even have some chess kids that come. If you have a chess person at your school, maybe they can be part of the esports and merge the club into esports like we did at Palm Beach Lake. So it's really how you design it. And I think for club level kind of things, it's really about exposure, getting them exposed to a wide range, to see their interests and learn about it. So.
All right. What other questions do you have? And this is the opportunity for that. Okay. Then one of the things, so what's going to happen is in just a little bit, we're going to be taking a break for lunch. And then when we come back from that break, we're going to be doing some additional work and planning, because then what you want to do is start to think about, what does your club day look like? Your meeting structure. What do you want to look like? You can look at the examples of what the first 4 meetings could look like and make some adjustments. You could jump over to the section of the guide that talks about tournaments and explore that, of what you might want to do an in-house tournament. So those are some different options to think about and explore. Our plan is to take take an hour for lunch. I wonder if we can come back together. If we break right now, if we take a break and we come back together at 12:52. Does that work for everybody? Okay, we'll say 12:55. Be nice. That way, you can like down even more for the credit. So I'll see you guys at 12:55, and we will continue our work then. All right, welcome back. So before we get into some planning time and thinking about those first meeting days that you want to do, and by the way, you can work on your meeting days. You could also, if you're still working on the original section that we were doing, which was where was it? Which was these pieces right here. And I'm just going to delete this out because you don't need to create a crosswalk. Well, you just need to. It's good to review the draft. But if you were still working like your survey, you can do that as well. But this is a good time to look at the your initial 4 meetings that you'll be doing with your club, or the tournament you might want to plan an in-house tournament. This will be playing time for that. But what questions do you have or observations that you have at this point about Esports Club? What is a good length for a meeting? Say about an hour. I mean, if you go longer, that's even better. The kids would love it. I was just with a school yesterday that some of them were going to do 2 hours, but usually it's an hour. So you might do a 20 to 30 minute max learning piece or structure piece, usually like 20 minutes, sometimes 30, and then 30 to 40 minutes of choice, or if you're doing a tournament. Like one of the things I used to do is if I offer a tournament, and I would plan it with the kids, and then those who want to be part of the tournament were part of the tournament, and those who didn't want to do the tournament just did the free play. So they had those choices. They didn't have to do the tournament, but they, a lot of times they want to be involved. Or if they didn't want to play the particular game title for the tournament, they might be willing to manage the tournament. And that becomes part of their portfolio, being able to manage a tournament. That's some serious stuff. Then what we're going to do is we're going to do planning time. It says to 1:45. I like to do to 1:40 instead, because there's some other pieces I want to take a little more time to look at. So we're going to be working to work time till, I didn't open this. I'm going to open up the breakout rooms. These are optional for you to jump into. And again, I'll stay in the main room if you get questions for me. But this is your time to 1:40 to work on your plan using the planning guide, the template, along with the guide itself. Okay, see you in a bit.
John, either one is, or both.
Yeah, so
Maybe I'm missing it, or I don't know if it's here at all. Is there a piece on kind of like responsible consumerism for, while these games aren't necessarily the ones that you are like pay to play, but a lot of them are going to that either subscription-based services or upgrades that you pay coins that you actually have to use real money for. Do you guys like cover that? Is that a component of meetings just for, responsible financial literacy of the gaming world?
part of that is your game selection. So again, whatever, they can only play the games that you have approved for the club. There will be games that they want to do that if it's not on your club list, they cannot play them in there. So with that said, if it is allowed, I mean, John will be able to get into that for you, to look at these other games, or you want to do a little mini lesson and say, hey, here's some games that you guys talk about that are not allowed in our club. I know you play them. Let's talk about pay to win and pay to play type games, and some of the spending, whatever you want to call it, issues with that.
Sure.
I mean, that's a route to go.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So part of the grant came from the Pew Foundation, and they've been the ones that have been funding financial literacy in the district for years. So for the new grant we got with Lakes, they actually want us to have a full-size financial literacy component in the courses during the day. But I think it's definitely something that, like John was saying, like it could be like a teaching point lesson on one of the days, explaining about loot boxes and all these things that you have to pay for coins, and then it uses real money, and how much how much money you're actually spending in the game compared to if you just paid $50 for the game, like olden days. How much more you're spending now if you want to try to beef up your character or whatever. Yeah, I think that's great. I don't think I've seen anything online specifically in K-12 EDU, but I know there's a lot of obviously articles online about pay to play kind of subscription based or whatever gaming. So I think could be a good debate even in your class. Like I think I saw you're an English teacher, right?
Right? I'm certified in both, primarily because I've been a debate coach, but I've been social science for my entire career. But yes, I will have English classes this year.
So definitely pull in that side of your content knowledge to esports. Like apply it to esports as well, because I would just think that would be a great debate between the kids, which is better, to pay $50 or to have in-app purchases, get the game for free, like that's a great
well,
thing.
and even when you say $50, $60 for a game now, and so many of these games, you're not getting the full game for that base price, because then they have the deluxe option, which opens the other the DLCs for whatever they are, the ultimate or platinum or whatever else. So you're going from $40 to $50 a game to the next gen consoles. They say, oh well, now they're $59.99, but that's still just the base. If you want the full experience of the game, you're paying $100 per game. And as you've already pointed out, I mean, you can get a console for basically what it costs you for 3 full games.
No. So I feel like that's great discussion for kids to have, and which is the best model to use, like the Xbox Gold Pass and having access to all those games. Is it worth it or not? So definitely, I love that. That's a great conversation.
All right, hello everybody. Oh, okay. Otherwise, we get the recording going. So it'll just be us. One of your peers had to go, so we'll continue. And we are in our last piece that we want to explore, and what that is about has to do with, you can see some additional learning pieces that we can do with your students. So remember, like, one of the great things about a club is that you can incorporate expanding their understanding of what's available in college career, and as well as what they could practice in their own gaming. So in this screen, you can see content creation and production. That's a big one right there. Fitness, nutrition, mental health, business and HR, journalism. And these are things that you can definitely do. Whoops, let me fix that. With them, as well as, like, for example, when you go to Skillshot or potentially like interact with some other people there, that's an opportunity to do virtual tours with the club students, where they might do like a 15-minute or 20-minute tour and Q&A and learn about what the opportunities are that they might want to explore that might energize them. And when we look at these pieces like content creation and journalism, this is an opportunity for having a club YouTube channel, having a club blog that is managed by you, but can be run by the students. And you can set up the security where they can't publish content, but they could put content up, and then you have the keys to unlock it and make it public. So you can set up the structure that way, and that's a way for them to get involved and, again, create their own portfolio of work that they're doing. So for all these topics like fitness, nutrition, if you click this link, it's going to take you to this document right here. And so this is the version 4 of a guide that has different modules that are used for elective courses, but also used by clubs and even teams to take modules that they want to use as a focus for learning. And like right now, I'm in a browser window, so I can't click this, but if you click these links, it's going to take you right there. In fact, just so that I can jump around really quickly, let me get the download here. All right, and new share. We'll make this bigger. So with this particular document, I can go into the table of content here. Like, oh, by the way, you'll see that it's aligned to ISTE standards and also computer science standards, and each module is aligned as well. So you can actually see the table and see how it's all connected. And then these are links to the actual national standards. I just realized we go here. And these are the modules right here that you can explore that I mentioned before. So if we want to do fitness, nutrition, we can go here, and it's already broken out. You can actually literally take this and teach this with your students with the resources to support that whole experience, and go across multiple weeks or even a month. So it's all there to create that, and it's not a lot of direct instruction. It's some guidance by the teacher, and then it's really self-guided by the student. So they really get to explore that piece. But I think of more interest for them in for some will be like content production. So there's one that here, this one talks about the different opportunities and getting them involved, understanding what the impact can be, and then looking at how they can produce and support. So eventually, when you have a sports team, esports team, you can leverage part of your club staff students to be the production team for those, to record those live games and possibly even stream some of those. So those are options there. And then the other content piece is just going deeper into those practices. So if you want, like, if you're going to do a tournament, like how might you produce that tournament? And so there are guides here to help the students think through the different planning steps to help prepare for that. And then the last thing I'll show you with this is under the appendices, we have different resources. So if you're working culture and helping to build culture with the students, you can use some of these resources. Again, talks about norms, talks about some different strategies that can be used to support their thinking. Even this type of graphic organizer think, which comes from digital citizenship. Is it true? Is it helpful, inspiring, necessary, and kind? Especially that necessary. By the time you get to that point, maybe it's not relevant. And getting them to think in those contexts can make a big difference. There are talk moves. This is a structure for how we can give each other feedback that's positive, constructive, and kind. So there's just a lot of, in the appendices, a lot of different strategies you can use, as well as resources and rubrics and assessments for things like global professional skills. And you'll find it all in the appendices. So like here's some charts we could put up so students can, when we say be a good communicator, what does that mean? Well, this gives very observable behaviors of what that looks like. You don't have to use the entire list. You just take the ones that you think would be of most use. There's even a section about engineering design thinking that if they are doing production or ideating some ideas for a tournament or just for the team play, we have a section here that gets into, how do the different phases of engineering design, what does it look like? What are examples of students demonstrating that? And what are some resources you can use to address that? And then the next section really has those charts where it says, okay, when I'm doing a good job of asking good questions, what does that look like? When I'm trying to imagine ideas, that can be abstract. This is what it looks like. So there are guides that you can use to help support that. So lots of resources. I'm just clicking on the footer of that you can use from this table of content, and you get a chance to explore this. And one other thing, like the computer science standards, you saw like the overview and the bottom, like this is that overview you saw before. But if you go down here, you'll see it broken out by each computer science standard indicator based upon the module. It's, this is what it is. This is how it's being broken down. So all that is there. And that's there in particular when you're trying to justify your program or what you're trying to do to, when a curriculum or someone from CT says, what's this whole deal about gaming? I don't see how that's valuable. It's all in here in terms of that support. Questions or comments? I know there's a lot. It's not intended to overwhelm because you're going to have time to actually look through this and think about this. But that's why in this next section, it's really thinking about these components. Like if you're going to do fitness, nutrition, it's good to have kids thinking about how, like you might have routines when they come to the club, that they might do some stretching routines to get them limber and relaxed. Because where do you think is esports injuries are very much similar to another category of people. What category or occupation do you think esports gamers share common injuries with? Okay. That's a good guess. Yeah, I can see there's some connection to that. How about office workers? They sit in the chair, so they can have back injuries, they can have posture injuries, wrist injuries, carpal tunnel, air traffic controllers because they're just sitting in a chair the entire time. And so you have esports athletes who are retiring from the sport due to these injuries at the age of 22. I mean, it's pretty serious. There's been some top players, if they ever get a Hall of Fame, who will make a Hall of Fame in the first ballot, who retired between the age of 22 and 24 because of wrist injuries or back injuries. And so that's why it's so important to have some routines and to educate your students about these types of things. So that becomes important. And like I said, in that guide, there are modules that address these areas. But again, think about tours. This is something where virtual tours or getting speakers, John would be a good resource connector for the area. I mean, you have an esports team or organization that's in your backyard, which is very cool. And so they could be someone to potentially tap into to let students see what are the different job opportunities that they could be involved in, and hear those speakers say exactly what you will likely say 100 times to your students about what they can do to get ready for that. But as soon as they hear it from your guest speakers, they're going to think the guest speakers are like brilliant, even though you said it 100 times already. So these are things that you will have options to do. So I have two options for you. We can look at this together, just kind of look at the, did I even show the guide I was looking at? I just realized when I was talking about the guide, was I even showing it to you? I just realized I was, because I'm looking, oh, I did, I think I shared back. I don't know if I did. Because all of a sudden I don't see it. Hold on. Oh, it's popping up in here. Oh, interesting. It did work when I did it that way. Okay, I feel better. So you have, like I said, you have this guide, and we can look at this together a little more in depth, or I can give you the space to not only go at your own pace, but to pick the things that you are particularly interested in and look at your own pace. What would you prefer? Ryan's flexible. Okay, well, let's do this. I'm gonna put you in breakout rooms, and what I'm going to have you do is I would like you to look in the module section and look in the appendices section, and I'd like you to explore 3 modules and 2 appendices sections, and be prepared to share one from each category. So one from esports modules and one from appendices that you think would be useful to your peers here in the district. We'll do a random select assignment. I think this was random. And so again, you're going to look at esports curriculum modules, look at, let's just say, look through 3, and you're going to identify 1 that you're going to be sharing. And then under appendices, look through at least 2 sections and be prepared to identify 1 to share with everybody else. We'll give you 15 minutes to explore, so you have some time to look and talk about it. And then we're going to come back together. So we're going to come back together at 2:10. All right? I'll see you at 2:10. Rooms are now open. Is the heat pretty oppressive?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it's pretty much the same. It's only 91, but the humidity is what's,
Yeah, I'd say that's the
normally,
relative. Yeah.
So it says it feels like it's 98 right now. So it's pretty in the 90s up by you. Is it that hot there?
It's supposed to be 90, but it's different from, Michigan than it is in Florida. Florida, I think,
Yeah.
90 is a whole different level of heat.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, we're going to get started. We have 2 groups, and so we'll see. We got Ryan and Everett, and then we have Alex and John. Alex, we know you had to carry the weight. There was a power outage, but which group would like to share first? Remember, we're looking at sharing one of the modules and then one of the resources. So who would like to get volunteered first?
My mic's already off, so I'll go ahead and go.
Okay.
So Everett and I were talking about the last three modules actually,
Oh,
the nutrition and fitness, and the women and gender equity, and then the mindfulness and mental health. I think we kind of came to the conclusion that those three in particular were quite important, not necessarily in the things that should be of the highest value for the students, but likely because they're the things that are underneath the surface in both the kids and the adults alike, in that they're not going to be the first thing that they think about when they think about gaming. And like we talked about this morning, the women and the gender equity, making people feel inclusive in something that they have a passion for, that's super important. And even beyond the gender, I mean, if you look at, there's racial stereotypes with gamers as well. So that inclusivity, that's I mean, that's key stuff that should probably be a part of everybody's club and or team, at least an initial component, or even a recurring agenda item for various meetings throughout the year.
absolutely. Makes sense. And yeah, these are those modules. What about what from the appendices did you pick out?
Everett, you want to do it, or I can keep talking, however you want to do it.
Oh, you can go ahead. That's fine. Yeah, I
So
got
we
off
were
my tab again.
we were also looking at the GPS, which confused the hell out of me for a second, because I've been a geography teacher for quite a while. I was like, GPS, what? Wasn't paying attention all the way. But that the communication component of it is that's key. I mean, we were talking about, I play with my sons. My sons are in elementary school age, so I'm hoping when they get to a school that has a competitive team or even a club, they'll be a part of that, because we enjoy it. But communication that's a big deal, and appropriate communication, which I'm kind of guilty of violating from time to time, especially as I'm scrolling through this. I'm like, I'm not being a very good role model for my elementary school age kids, especially when I rage quit, or the emotions get the best of me. So that component is pretty critical as well, even if just not from a mental health perspective for your own stress levels, but the perception of people around you. I mean, even if you're not directly talking to someone sees you getting emotional and upset about something as silly as a video game, which a lot of people have that perception because they don't have a connection to it. They won't want to communicate with you. They won't want to build or continue to build a relationship with you. So, I mean, definitely another critical elements there that should be reoccurring agenda items.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing those. Let's go with Alex.
All right, so like the module that I focused on was the business overview. And I think that would be a great module to cover even with the clubs and organizations, just because ultimately we would run just like a business. You gotta like disperse the responsibilities. Certain people will be in charge of different things, and all together is how you make the organization successful and whatnot. Also, as far as like within the business aspect, you can talk about how much like finances go into it. Talking about the fundraising aspect and all of those different things. And as far as the appendix, I actually picked the same exact one. It was related to the business aspect, the global professional skills.
Okay, let's get your take on it.
So Ryan pretty much like said it all in that sense. I think it's very important with the students should be able to like communicate properly, and ultimately these are skills that we're helping them build that will be applicable when whatever profession they end up with. It doesn't have to be a gaming profession. It can be literally becoming a teacher. It could be becoming a businessman. It could be an engineer. All of those things, you're going to need those communication skills and be able to like relay your message across appropriately, and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, great. So yeah, these are definitely things to think about. And like I said, if you're interested in the global professional skills, you also might look at digital citizenship resources, because those also align with that type of work and resources. So those are things that can be very useful. And if also with that global professional skills is these first two modules, esports culture building and digital citizenship and gaming culture are connected to that as well. But nicely done. So what we're going to do now is this is your last planning session. And this will be for a little bit less than 30 minutes. We're going to go to 2:45, and this is your opportunity to draw from those resources to create those lessons or activities during your club that you might be doing with your students, or if there's some work from the previous sections you want to work on, you can do that as well. We're going to do that to 2:45, and then we're going to collect some closing thoughts and closing questions you have that we haven't answered yet, and then we're going to wrap up. Yep. And I'm going to once again create new rooms, so you have the option to go into these new rooms, or you can stay here and I will be available anytime if you got questions.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I don't know how the club team is going to look at the school, because I haven't been there yet, and it'll basically be going full steam ahead as soon as we start on the 4th. So I'm working with an incomplete picture, but I'm trying to come up with some kind of system, primarily because of the roles that I saw throughout some of these documents, like a production team, an ad or media team, a leadership committee for planning the meetings. I've done debate, so I've had a committee to, for trainings for the students, the experts of the different topics that we would do. So I've had student leadership involved in that. I'm a former SGA sponsor, so I've done that type of leadership where we have different committees and everything. But in that little experience, there's always been the majority that don't quite rotate into one of the leadership roles. And to me, I think that's been one of my biggest flaws. And I want to have everyone almost in charge of something, not necessarily in charge, but at least more of an active role for a group, committee, whatever it may be. So all of that to ask this, do you guys have like a skeleton of groups or committees or something along those lines that you can place students into based off of, observable skills, or, things that you think students would fit well into? Do you guys have like a list of different groups? Because I don't have experience in this, and I didn't even think about like the production, someone like doing the filming or editing of the gameplay, and so that didn't even cross my mind until I saw it here. So my lack of experience is, guiding all these questions as far as what do I do? How do I do this? And I don't know. So do you guys have anything like that?
No, we don't, but it's because it depends upon what you want to focus on when you start.
Sure.
So if you might start with the production team, you might not. But if you don't, you don't need that. If you do, then as you break out the roles and responsibilities, then you would bring students in on that. If you do journalism, you can look at a lot of different ways. You probably want one person who's the lead editor. Their job is not to edit everything, but to make sure everyone edits their stuff so it's clean before it gets there. You might have one other person or two people who's responsible for uploading content. I mean, they don't get to publish it, but they get uploaded so you can review it and then, turnkey to activate it yourself.
Gotcha.
You might have two people, you might have three people. Now, as far as requiring everyone to have a role if they're in the club. I mean, that's certainly something you can try. I mean, that's and I would just say it's gonna probably be organic, where you'll identify roles, or the kids will identify roles. Like, hey, we need this. You'll just make up an official name title for that, and it's like, all right, we got a role now. Let's then leverage the kids as they do it to create the job description, so that when they eventually move on to the next school or graduate, we have a role description so that someone else can step into that.
Gotcha.
You might have
John,
redundancy. Oh, go ahead, John.
No, I was gonna say, are you able to allow me to screen share and I can share one graphic
Yeah.
I have?
Sure. I thought you would have it because you have your co-host.
Yeah, it didn't give me co-host again whenever I
Oh,
got kicked out.
yeah, right. Okay, you have it.
Okay. Oh, I guess now I can't take. Oh, maybe now we go. There we go. So Ryan, one idea that you can do as well. This is, I think, partially for. It says the word club, but it can also be, when you're coaching as well. This comes from NASAF, which is a basic club formation where you, as the GM, and then just like most of your clubs that you've ever done before, you've got your basic four: president, vice president, treasurer, secretary. And then depending on what you're doing, so the way this is organized right here is this would be for like one game. So again, this is more competition based when you get to the purple. But let's say like this would be for Rocket League. And so all this purple would be Rocket League. And then if you're doing another game, you would have like another branch off and another row of purple, coaches, team manager, blah, blah, blah. But then you have all these other roles that are up here. If you want to get into that with the club, like you don't have to get this in depth with a club, like, unless your kids would like to stream, what you're doing as a club or post on social. I know you wanted to come last week as well. So I think you might be also looking, that's why I brought this up, because I think you might be looking at the competition side of things, where you would want to have a Twitter page and a Twitch stream and all of that, where these would all come into play. Regarding rolling, I think it's going to be hard for you to find a role for everyone, because I think what you're going to find is you're going to be overwhelmed very quickly with how many kids want to be part of this.
Okay. I'm fine with that. That'd be great.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good problem to have, but so what Lakes ended up saying was like, there were two of them, we can only handle 60 kids. So we need to actually cap our club at 60.
Wow.
Even though there were more kids that wanted to continue to join. So I've seen where schools have a large influx of kids that want to be a part of it because there's nothing else like it on campus. And they're finally finding like, oh, this club is interesting to me, and so that's why I know it's your first year at Wellington, but even if you maybe work with Kara to find like maybe another coach, like is there someone else on campus that might be interested in gaming as well, who you guys might pair off with, because the numbers are extremely high based on student interest from what I've seen at the schools.
Good.
So this is just kind of a one organizational strategy that you can use.
And this is almost identical to what I used for debate. So where you're saying that each of the purples is going to be a different game, we did that same thing for different events. And so we would have an LD expert, a PF expert, and extemp expert, and it was exactly like this. And then I had the overall structure of a president, a vice president, social media.
Exactly.
Now, with that, is there, as far as like, obviously social media is within our district, they love Twitter, but is there any website domains that our district prefers over others, or just more user friendly? I'm not quite big into publishing anything. I use, Facebook, like Instagram,
Yeah.
those kinds of things. But as far as web pages go, which I'm absolutely interested in because it's just exposure. And
Yeah.
that's exposure is how you're going to get the support for the club, especially from the community, the parents, and businesses to help, put the bill for some of this stuff.
Yeah,
But is
exactly.
there a website, a specific domain that would be best to get this rolling if and when we do cross that bridge?
So sorry, I'm just trying to, I can't remember what it was called. So my initial reaction would be, I would still start with Twitter. I feel like Twitter is the best place. I understand the concept of a website, but really Twitter is kind of the easiest to start off with, just to start showcasing what you're doing. I don't know if you're a tweeter or not, but
A little bit.
but that's, and I would do too, like create your own and then create a team one, because that's also where you're going to be able to connect with other esports people, like, so
Gotcha.
the team one, which you'll create with the esports email address from the district, that could be one that is student led, as long as you obviously trust the student to be tweeting on your behalf. And that could be an earned position where, okay, you type it all up and then I'll just copy paste for the first few. And then once I get a hang of it, because you can like add a notification anytime someone tweets and you'll get it on your phone.
Mhm.
So like you can sign up for that on the account and make sure that what they're tweeting is accurate. But I know Instagram is also the big one for students, but there's not
Sure.
as much that I found on Instagram for esports. So that's where the girl at Palm Beach Lake started, was at in Instagram, but I don't know if she was that successful until she moved to Twitter. And then also, if you're moving towards that competition side, that's where you've got your Twitch stuff and your shoutcasters. So you could create a Twitch stream and actually be streaming. So like Palm Beach Lakes has been streaming on Twitch since, for several months now. Which then leads you into, okay, maybe we can get a sponsorship, and then I would need a graphic made from from this group, so that I can put it on my Twitch stream, the advertising this person donated money, you know what I mean? That's how you could get local business support, just like we have them outside our school, those big signs. Well,
Yeah.
I can sell digital market, I'll have the right corner is your advertisement, for our first 4 games or whatever. So so that's kind of where that all kind of works together, as the kids need to start working together, saying, oh, I need these graphics. Even your social media person might need some pictures or a graphic made, or to start off, your team needs a logo. So who's designing the logo? Who's voting on the logo? All of those types of questions that you would need if you're going to actually compete. You need to have a logo, like they're asking for it. So
Gotcha.
yeah. And the two of us
Okay.
can also chat, because I know you missed last week. If you want, we can
Yeah.
chat in the coming weeks too.
Okay. And I know I've kind of circled back to this a couple times. Does the county have a definitive list of games that these are the ones we're allowed to use? Or is it, you got to go with this style, and anything that's questionable, you have to ask for approval? Because
Yeah,
the reason why I'm asking that is based on what I've seen in the documentation, I have very little experience with a lot of these games. I play different games, so I'm kind of excited to open up my world, but I don't know a lot about them and everything. Like I'm sitting here looking at my game wall, and I'm like, okay, that's inappropriate. That's inappropriate.
Yeah.
Just so I'm very limited as far as my knowledge. Abundance of ignorance in the video game world.
No, that's okay.
But
And I am too. I've been doing this for 2 years, and I've kind of just stuck to the main ones for now, because that's what I've known. But when you're looking at the club, again, if you ever have a question, like, always reach out to me. I'm available. I try to get back as soon as I can. But for high school, again, T for teen, that's the big one. And then looking at shooter games. Like that's the other, like even last week, I'll bring up last week because John was here too. Like they brought up Splatoon. I don't know if you know what Splatoon is for Nintendo.
No.
It's basically a whole bunch of little toon people who have guns, but they're shooting paintballs. And so the question is that something that's okay, even though I believe it's an E for everyone game, but it's a third person shooter, not a first person shooter. So what I said to the group is I just want to get full clarification before I say yes, because unfortunately I'm just a peon, as I call myself, at the district office. So, I don't really get to make the decisions. I'm just like the one implementing a lot of the stuff. So I just want to make sure that they're okay with it. And I also have a middle school principal who I've been working with, who's been implementing esports. And so like, that was the question I asked him, like, what do you think? And he had never seen it before. So I sent him some footage, but yeah, if you ever have questions, please feel free to just reach out to me. A couple of games, and I don't know what systems these are on, but are like something called Knockout City, which is almost like is that the one that's Overwatch? Yeah, right. Like it's like Overwatch, I think, but it's dodgeball. So they're using
it's dodgeball up to I think up to level 20. It's currently free to play. But yeah.
I thought it went fully free to play. I thought that's what they were telling me.
Oh, did they? Maybe they may have adapted, which would be a smart move.
I think they did. I think they were saying it was going. Yeah. Hold on. Free to play release date. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's free to play. Because that's why they had mentioned it to me. And then the other one is Brawlhalla, which is a free version of like Smash Brothers. I believe that's PC though. I'm not sure. So yeah, so like I think the big thing is just thinking about the game type. Obviously, things like racing are fine. As long as it's appropriate racing. Ooh,
so what about like realistic fighting games like
like your Mortal Kombat's? No.
No. UFC or I forgot the boxing one. I just saw it. There's the UFC series, and then
and that's console, right? You're talking like maybe PlayStation or
I think they're actually, it is, I have them on console, but I think they're available on mobile and PC.
Okay.
So yeah, they're all T for teens, but one of the things that, and I don't know that John, you've finished your review structure, but in that document that I provided as a suggested as a reference guide, which is 3B, the review guideline process, is some of the things that that will probably need to be determined at a district level is to what extent is this acceptable?
It's violent.
So,
yeah.
So look
You're
at
not
violence.
sharing, John, just so you know.
Oh, I'm not. Oh, well, that helps if I did that.
I took over. Sorry.
You took over. Okay, hold on. Share screen. So what the heck? Okay, so in this right here, these are other considerations. So for example, violence, like what level of blood and gore is there? So when I look at UFC, it says right here, blood and violence. So having to look and see like, what does that mean? If blood, for example, is graphic, that might be the level, or it might be any blood that's realistic as opposed to cartoony.
Gotcha.
So once, and Ryan, you might want to be a part to give feedback to that district committee to say this is how we should interpret these levels for high school versus middle school versus elementary.
And that's a perfect segue to what my final question was going to be, because John, I plan on, and this is the debate coach in me coming out, I plan on, especially since you said your access to him is like far and few between, I plan on petitioning the superintendent if it's his decision to say no to Fortnite. because I think some pretty good arguments as to why that should be allowed, in addition to why, everything esports is good for students, including the fact that there's no death in Fortnite.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
just
no, I
there's no
understand.
blood. Yeah. So so the final question is, when I do that, do you want to be included in that email?
I
Should
do not want to be included in that email. I do not.
I figured that. I
exist.
just thought I'd check with you.
No,
Because yeah, I
and
just
just for some context, the meeting I had when we first, promoted this, Mr. Burke was not the superintendent. It was still
Yeah.
Dr. Pinoy prior to the pandemic. So that's when I met with them. I met with them twice, and that was like literally, I had an amazing presentation, and just like leadership always does, first thing before I get 3 words out of my mouth, they're already asking questions about things that would already been answered later. But the first thing out of their mouth literally was no first-person shooters. And that's not just an argument in Palm Beach. Like, it's a very much a Florida thing that I've learned as I've worked with fellow districts all around us. I don't know of one large urban district in Florida that allows Fortnite officially. There are a couple of the smaller rural districts that are using Overwatch. But for the most part, especially because of Stoneman Douglas being so close, I think that was their almost instant response was absolutely nothing with shooting and killing. That's really that's why I even said Splatoon, I'm not sure, because technically you're hitting these kids with paintballs, and you know what I mean? So I am also 100% that understands you're not. So just something to know about me, I am not the person who loves to put gates up. I'm the one that likes to rip down the red tape. I'm not good at bureaucracy. I'm not good at all that stuff. But I understand, like, I need to take the baby steps first for them to get to understand the importance. So I took the concessions now for me to be able to say, okay, well, now look what this is. Like, I love the concept of the Fortnite world builder. Like, I have a good friend who works with Epic Games that, we're talking about that kind of stuff and how it would be awesome to have kids to be able to build their own worlds in Fortnite, So it's not that I don't understand. It's not that I don't get it. It's just, obviously, as you go up the chain, it's a different mindset and they have different priorities. So, so all of this to say, if you do have questions about games, just let me know, and I'm not going to lie to you. I'm very transparent. I am on your side as an educator. Even though I work at the district office, I am passionate about still being in the classroom. I was in the classroom, so I understand all of that. So that's the difference between our team and a lot of the other teams in the district. Ed Tech, we have to have our certificate. We had to have been in the classroom, So when I came to the district, I said I would never lose sight of the classroom, because I know so many at that building does lose sight of the classroom. That's just I'm letting you know my philosophy of mentality because of my experience, and so I am fighting every day, I believe in this. My director is so with this. He's fine with it. He's just very laissez-faire. But his boss, who used to be my director, is the one that implemented this. He loves this. He loves esports. He thinks it's one of the ways we're going to engage our kids. And so, so I'm going to use some of those to my advantage as I continue. But if you have any questions, let me know. But we will get to Mr. Burke, I promise.
Okay. Anything else, Ryan?
I apologize. I'm not trying to
No,
consume all you guys' time. I'm excited about this. I think I'm excited what it's going to mean at a new school that I haven't known the student body. Like I said, I was raised, my first system was Atari. So, and I've had pretty much every system, I think, except for the Dreamcast since. And I think it's fantastic. Like I said, no PC experience or Mac gaming, but I just think this is great. I've been a proponent long before they started coming out with the studies video games don't cause violence. It's not, it has nothing to do with the games, and they're skill builders. It's, the critical thinking that's involved in these. So I think this is just fantastic. So it's a lot of excitement that's coming out. So that's why I try not to monopolize your time.
Not monopolizing at all, because I'm sure the question you're asking are questions that everyone else in the group are thinking about. So I think it's very helpful for them, for everyone. And it helps for the people who are watching this recording, so that they might have those questions as well.
Good stuff.
All right. So we have about 4 more minutes, then we'll bring everybody together. All right, let's come back, and a couple things. The first thing is just kind of wrap up, like, what are there any final questions that you have regarding as you get ready for finishing your next steps? You think about that, because please keep in mind that you have the working plan, the template that you're completing, that you put all the pieces in there, and that's going to get you ready. Because the very first thing is to communicate to your students and their families about what you're about to do, and get their input about the resources, through a survey, and what game, you have a list of games, you might share some of those games and see what else they have to say. It can be very powerful what kids might share about their perspective about a club. I mean, they'll be excited, and then they might have some questions they want to explore. And then once you get that, and then you have an information meeting, whether it's just for students or you do one for students and one for parents. Once you've done those pieces, you're going to be ready to get launching, and bring in a student committee to help you put those details and logistics together will be invaluable, because that'll be your core group right there, as well as your outreach. And I just want to emphasize, it's so important to think about inclusivity. How will you ensure that each student feels that they are welcome? And it's not that, again, it's not that at the school you don't do that. It's the perception of the gaming world that you have to help them, mediate their perception of that to come in. And that's really what it's about in that regard. Okay, so before I have the link for the survey for this. I'm gonna post it in the chat in just a moment, but if everyone could just take a moment, in 3 words or less, how would you describe where you're at now with Esports Club in your district? 3 words or less. Novice but learning. That's good. That's good. Let's hear from Alex and Everett. Excited, curious, am I ready? Yeah, that's reasonable. Don, you got 3 words or less you want to share? Oh, Everett says excited, learning, soaking in the information. More than 3 words, but we'll give that to you. That works. All right. Well, as I said, I appreciate all of your time. And here's a link to a survey. This is for Dell Technologies and Advanced Learning Partnerships about the workshop experience. I appreciate your feedback about this. And if you could fill this out, that would be your exit ticket. And you can do it offline if you wish. But really do appreciate your time. And again, please, in the agenda, you have my email address and Twitter. Do not hesitate to contact me with any other questions you may have. I'm excited to see the clubs that are going to pop up this coming school year.
Thank you, guys.
Be on the lookout for email from me, follow up. We'll hold a district workshop hopefully in the next month or so, and I'll also send permission slip, and then there'll also be a form for principals to officially assign coaches. So yeah, I will be sending that out in the next few weeks as we get school started. So Thanks again. And if you need anything before then, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm here as well. Thank you. And thank you, John. I appreciate it.
Thank you.